After 7 years of living in the very house I'd paid off with my late husband, my son and his wife suddenly won $92 million. But instead of a word of thanks for the roof over their heads, by that afternoon, my daughter-in-law had spitefully tossed all my things onto the front lawn, my mother's vase shattering on the walkway while she yelled, "We don't need to support you anymore. Go fade away in a home." I stood there on the grass, my clothes covered in dust, my heart beating slow and steady, and I just said quietly, "Did you happen to see the signature on the ticket?" Her triumphant smirk faltered for just a moment, and I knew that one simple question was about to bring her whole glittering new world crashing down. If you're here listening, I'd love to know what city you're watching from. Every comment you leave makes me feel a little less alone on this journey. And if this story speaks to your heart, please tap that like button so it can find others who might need to hear it. I'm Eleanor Vance, 64, a widow for almost 9 years. Since my Henry passed, the two-story colonial in the suburbs of Boston became my whole world, and then my son David's world too, along with his pretty but sharp-tongued wife, Sarah. 7 years ago, when David's firm downsized and Sarah was pregnant, they showed up on my porch during a blizzard, looking frozen and hopeless. I opened the door, didn't ask a thing, and just said, "Get inside. This home will always have room for you." From that day on, we lived as 3 generations, mostly quiet, until that one awful morning. That morning, I woke up at dawn, like always, to get the coffee brewing and make oatmeal for the little ones, Lily, 8, and Leo, 5. But instead of their little feet on the stairs, I heard a shriek that cut right through the house from the kitchen. "David, get down here. Get down here now." Sarah's voice was shrill, practically vibrating with excitement. I put the coffee pot down, my own heart thumping. I was used to my daughter-in-law's moods, but this was something else. It was joy, but it was frantic, almost greedy. The stairs groaned as David pounded down. I waited at the top of the landing, holding my breath. A second of silence. Then, the shouting started. No, it can't be. Oh my gosh, it can't be. We won, David. $92 million. $92 million. I looked down and saw Sarah clutching the lottery ticket, shaking all over. David was hugging her, just laughing and saying, "I don't believe it. I don't believe it." They were jumping up and down, tears streaming down their young, hungry faces. And I, the one who bought that exact ticket just yesterday, with the numbers I've played for 20 years, every single one a family date, just stood there frozen. My stomach dropped, not because of the money, but because neither of them ever thought to ask, "Mom, is this yours?" I took one step down the stairs, about to say something, when Sarah turned, her eyes shining like she'd just struck gold. "We're rich, David. Finally, we can get out of this dusty old house." She said it and kissed the ticket like it was a holy relic. I stopped right there. The words, "this dusty old house," felt like a slap. The home Henry and I had built with every penny we saved, every weekend we spent painting, every nail we hammered in with our own hands. I wanted to tell them I was the one who bought that ticket at the corner market, but the words just wouldn't come. I looked at David, my only son, hoping he'd see me. But he just stood there, letting Sarah lead, just like he always did. I went back up to my little room in the attic, my heart feeling like a stone. I tried to make some tea, but my hands were shaking so much I spilled the hot water. For the first time in all these years, I felt like a guest in my own house. About an hour later, I heard cars. Neighbors, drawn by the shouting, were already stopping by. Laughter, doors slamming, glasses clinking. I peeked out my little window and saw Sarah on the porch, waving the ticket with David next to her, smiling that weak smile of his. By noon, there was a sharp knock on my attic door. Sarah stood there, arms crossed, a mean little curl to her lip. "Start packing. We're moving, and we're not taking any dead weight with us." I didn't understand. "Dead weight?" I repeated. "Yeah, we're buying a mansion. You wouldn't fit in. At your age, you're better off in a nice nursing home. They can look after you there. I looked her right in the eye. This is my house, Sarah. Used to be, Eleanor, she said, hitting every word. We have a new life now, and you're not in it. Then she yanked open my little closet and just started throwing my things, my dresses, my wedding picture, a little clay pot I'd made in college. Everything just crashed onto the lawn below. I stood there in silence while the neighbors gathered and whispered. David stood in the doorway, hands jammed in his pockets, his face white. But he didn't say a word to stop his wife. David, please, he mumbled once. But she ignored him. We don't need to do charity for you anymore, she yelled, like she wanted the whole street to hear. That word, charity, it felt like a knife. I just quietly bent down, picked up the broken frame of my wedding photo, and wiped the dirt off with my sleeve. My elderly neighbor from across the street, Margaret, rushed over to help me. But I stopped her. Thank you, but I'm all right. I gathered what I could. A few clothes, the photo, and the small box that held Henry's ring. When an old green taxi pulled up, I stood and took a deep breath. I turned to David, my boy, the one I thought would always look out for his mother. You're really not going to say anything? I asked. My voice was calm and clear. He just looked at the ground. Sarah's just excited, Mom. No, David, I said. This is the choice you both made. I walked to the gate, then I stopped. Sarah was standing there, arms still crossed, still wearing that smug, triumphant smile. I looked right at her. Did you see the signature on the back of the ticket? For a split second, that smile just froze. A little flicker of doubt. Then she covered it up with a scoff. I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't answer. I just opened the taxi door, put my bag in, and told the driver quietly, anywhere cheap. A motel. As the car drove off, I looked in the side mirror. David was still standing frozen on the steps. The two little ones, Lily and Leo, were pressed against the upstairs window, their faces streaked with tears. Sarah had turned away, pretending to be on her phone, but I could see how stiff her shoulders were. The room I rented was above a 24-hour laundromat. It just barely fit a small bed, a wobbly desk, and a window that was stuck half open. The smell of bleach and dryer sheets drifted up from downstairs, clinging to my clothes. I sat on the edge of the bed, opened my purse, and took out a small piece of paper folded in four. The purchase receipt. The name Eleanor Vance in the signature box was clear as day. I ran my thumb over the ink, and I could hear Henry's voice. Always sign your name, Ellie. People can argue about anything, but a signature is a signature. I smiled, just a little. Outside, the city was loud, but in that small, damp room, I felt a strange kind of quiet. They thought I had lost, but the truth was, the real story was just getting started. After Henry was gone, the house was so empty I could hear the pipes settling at night. I missed him, his solid, warm presence, the way he'd hum when he was fixing something, and that deep laugh that always made me feel safe. Being a widow at 55 taught me to be quiet and keep little routines to feel like he was still here. I'd pour 2 cups of coffee every morning. I'd straighten his favorite armchair, and sometimes I'd just whisper, "I'm doing okay, Henry." Then one January night, in the middle of a nor'easter, David showed up. He was standing on the porch covered in snow, holding a suitcase. Behind him was Sarah, her makeup running, her eyes red. "Mom, we lost the apartment. My startup went under. The landlord wants the rent. We have nowhere to go." I just opened the door wide and nodded. "Get inside. This home will always have room for you." Sarah thanked me, her voice shaking. She was young, pretty, and knew just how to make you feel sorry for her. That day, I really believed I was doing the right thing. I never imagined that David's just for a few months would turn into 7 long years. 7 years of being the unpaid help in the house that still had my name on the mortgage. At first, it was fine. I gave them the big master bedroom, the one Henry and I loved because it got the morning sun. "The light is good for the baby," I said. David squeezed my hand. "Thanks, Mom. We'll pay you back, I promise." But the promise never came. After Lily was born, and then Leo 2 years later, Sarah never went back to work. David drifted between contract jobs. Some months, he brought in almost nothing. I covered the utilities, the groceries, the property tax, all of it, with my teacher's pension and what was left of Henry's savings. I didn't mind. I thought that's what family does. You lift each other up. I remembered what Henry told me before he passed. "Don't let our boy go hungry, Ellie." So I did everything to keep that house running. Mornings, I was up at 5, making breakfast for everyone, packing David's lunch, taking Lily to preschool. Afternoons, I'd do the laundry, start dinner, and rock Leo to sleep. I was the engine that kept the whole house going. Then one day, Sarah said, "Mom, I need a quiet space. My old boss wants me to do some freelance design. Maybe you could move up to the attic. I can use your room as an office." I hesitated. The attic was just for storage, cramped and cold in the winter. But she used that sweet, syrupy voice. "It's so much more private up there. You can have your own little space." I forced a smile. "If it helps you, dear, of course." I didn't know that by moving upstairs, I was moving out of my own life. From then on, I was officially Mrs. Vance, who lived upstairs. Sarah reorganized the entire kitchen. "This cabinet is for the kids' snacks. This one is for David's protein powder. You can keep your tea things in this little one over here." I didn't argue, but I felt like I was renting a room. That winter, she started having adults-only dinner parties. I would still cook everything and set the table. But right before the guests arrived, Sarah would smile and say, "Mom, I saved you a plate in the kitchen. We need to talk about grown-up stuff." I'd go into the kitchen, close the door, and eat alone under the buzzing fluorescent light. From the dining room, I'd hear the laughter, the clinking glasses, and Sarah holding court like the lady of the manor. I kept telling myself, "It's fine. They're young. They need their own life. Just be quiet." But when you're quiet for that long, it starts to feel like you're disappearing. When Lily started talking, Sarah taught her to call me Mrs. Vance, not Grandma. "Grandma sounds so old, Mom," she said. "Mrs. Vance is more respectful." I laughed it off, but I cried in the bathroom that night. The next day, I still made my granddaughter her oatmeal, just like always. In the 3rd year, David got a part-time job at an engineering firm. I asked him how it was going. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "It's enough to get by, Mom." I knew it wasn't, but I didn't push. When you see that look of shame on your child's face, sometimes a mother just pretends not to see. I kept paying for the lights, the water, the insurance, and slipped extra money for Lily's ballet lessons. I told myself I could handle it, as long as the family stayed together. By the 4th year, Sarah started making new rules. "Mom, no cookies for the kids before dinner. Mom, the living room needs to be perfect. We're having friends over. Mom, you need to fold the towels this way, not that old-fashioned way." Each rule was a small thing, but altogether they felt like 1,000 tiny cuts. I listened. I did it. I swallowed it. One night I made Henry's favorite clam chowder. The smell filled the house. David breathed in deep. "Oh man, Mom. It's been so long." Sarah frowned. "All that cream, David. It's pure cholesterol. You don't want to end up like your dad, do you?" The table went silent. I just looked at my bowl and said quietly, "Your dad ate this his whole life and was strong as an ox." She just smirked. Different times, Mrs. Vance. After that, I understood. In my own kitchen, I wasn't allowed to cook from memory anymore. David wasn't cruel, just weak. When I told him Sarah was being too hard, he'd just sigh. "She's just stressed, Mom. I'm working, and she's got the 2 kids and the whole house to manage." I wanted to say, "And who do you think is managing her?" But I didn't. Sometimes I'd overhear Sarah on the phone. It's so hard living with my mother-in-law. She's just always there. Every time I wondered who she was talking about. I was barely there at all. I just cleaned, cooked, and wrote down the expenses in a little black notebook. I still remember one spring afternoon. I was hanging laundry in the backyard and I heard Sarah in the kitchen talking to David. You know how this looks? A grown couple, living off your mother. I want our own place, but this house, the insurance is in her name. We can't just sell it. Then get her to sign it over. She doesn't need a whole house. I stood there behind the curtains, my heart hammering. Not from fear, but from a cold, clear realization. I had given them so much, bit by bit, that they'd started to believe it was all theirs by right. That summer, I started journaling. Every night, in an old ledger. The first line was always the same. Day of patience. I didn't write much else, just little notes. Sarah complained about the towels. David forgot to pick up Lily. Leo was sick. I stayed up with him. Just tiny little lines, like scratches left by someone slowly being erased. Even so, one thing in me never burned out. My love. I loved David, the little boy who used to build me forts out of couch cushions. I loved the two little ones, who would sneak into the attic to give me hugs. I even, in some way, loved Sarah, because I believed people could change, that one day they'd see I did it all because I loved them. But patience runs out. And the thing that broke it wasn't a big dramatic fight. It was a small thing. So small that if I told anyone, they'd think I was overreacting. But I remember that afternoon perfectly, the way the light came through the window, when Sarah said the one thing that finally snapped my endurance. Lily's 10th birthday was on a perfect sunny April day, the kind where you can smell the new leaves. I still remember her eyes when she pointed to it in the art store window. A professional watercolor paint set, the kind with the fancy paper and dozens of little pigment blocks in a wooden box. Grandma, if I had that, I could paint the ocean, she whispered, her face pressed to the glass. I smiled, but my heart sank a little. I knew the price. $180. It was almost everything I had left from my pension after paying the month's bills. I thought about it for days, then I decided. I saved every penny. I cut back on my own few groceries. I stopped buying my one little treat, the good dark chocolate. She's only 10 once, I told myself. And sometimes one perfect gift can make a whole childhood feel special. 3 days before her birthday, I quietly walked to the shop. The clerk, a nice young man, helped me wrap it in silver paper with blue ribbons. When the paper shined, I smiled, picturing my granddaughter's face. I hid the box in the back of my attic closet under an old blanket. I barely slept, just thinking about the moment she'd open it. Henry would have loved this. He always said, "The best gift, Ellie, is one that gives someone a dream." I wanted to give her a dream. On the morning of her birthday, I got up even earlier. I made blueberry pancakes, her favorite, and put a few wildflowers from the garden in a little jar on the table. The kitchen smelled wonderful. I felt happy, almost like my old self. I put on a yellow dress Henry once said he liked. Lily came running down, her pigtails flying, clapping her hands. "It's my birthday, Grandma." I opened my arms and hugged her tight. "Of course, sweetie, and I have a special surprise for you." I hadn't even finished the sentence when Sarah walked in, wearing an expensive silk robe, her hair in a messy bun. She looked around, frowning at the pancakes and the flowers. "Mom, what's all this?" "It's just a little breakfast for Lily. It's her birthday," I answered gently. She opened the fridge, poured herself a coffee, and turned back. "You know, David and I decided this year we're teaching her about moderation. No big, expensive gifts. We want her to understand the value of things." I looked at Lily and saw her smile just fade. I tried to stay calm. "Don't worry, I just got her a little something. Nothing extravagant." Sarah raised an eyebrow. Little, huh? I smiled. You'll see tonight. She didn't say anything, but I saw the suspicion in her eyes. I knew Sarah. She hated when I did anything that might make her look bad in front of the kids. With her, everything was a competition. That afternoon, when David brought the kids home, I got the key to my closet. Lily, come up to the attic with Grandma, I called. She ran up, her eyes wide as I pulled the big silver box from under the blanket. Oh, my gosh, Lily breathed, her hands flying to her mouth. Is it for me, Grandma? I nodded. Happy birthday, my little artist. She threw her arms around my neck, laughing and crying at the same time. My heart just felt full to bursting, but the moment only lasted a second. Sarah's voice cut through the air from the doorway, cold as ice. What is that? She walked over, her eyes scanning the box. Then she looked right at me. I told you, Mom. No expensive gifts. I kept my voice even. It's just paints, Sarah. She's dreamed of them. That's not the point. The point is, you are undermining our rules. My rules. Rules? I repeated with a little half smile. I didn't know loving your granddaughter had rules. She stepped closer, her voice low and sharp. You did this to make me look bad, didn't you? To show the kids you're the good one. Sarah, don't be ridiculous, David said, but his voice was weak. I looked at her. I did it because I love her. That's it. Lily was clutching my hand, terrified. Mommy, please. I'll be careful. I won't ask for anything else, she sobbed. But Sarah just sighed and knelt down to Lily's level. Sweetie, we just want you to learn. This is too much. Grandma is going to return it, and you'll understand why we have to be responsible. No! Lily burst into tears. I held her tight, feeling her little body shake. That is enough, Sarah, I said, my voice tight. If you want to teach her a lesson, you do it. But you won't take away her joy. She just pressed her lips together and pulled out her phone. Mom, you return the paint set, or I will. That afternoon, I walked the box back to the art store. Each step felt like it was lead. The wind blew the blue ribbons around, and they whispered like lilies crying. I took one last look at the beautiful wooden box before I went inside. I need to return this, I told the clerk. Are you sure, ma'am? It's our last one. Yes. The little girl changed her mind. When I signed the refund slip, my hand was shaking. I folded the receipt and put it in my wallet. As I left, it started to drizzle, the cold drops hitting my face. That night, the house was silent. No cake, no singing. I put the little cupcake I'd bought on the kitchen table, with a card that said, Happy birthday, Lily. I love you always, Grandma. I lit the one little candle and watched it burn down, the flame reflecting in Henry's picture on the wall. Do you see this? I whispered. Our granddaughter can't have a birthday gift. I don't have a say in my own home anymore. I stood up, put on my coat, and walked out. The April night was cold. The corner market was still open, its lights casting a yellow glow on the wet street. I just needed air. The shop was empty. The owner, Mr. Patel, smiled. Late night, Mrs. Vance. I shook my head. Then my eyes landed on the lottery counter. A little sign read, Jackpot tomorrow, $92 million. I gave a small, tired smile. One ticket, please, with these numbers. I read him the familiar dates. Henry's birthday, my birthday, David's, and the two kids. The same numbers I'd played for 20 years. Just an old habit. I pulled out a pen and signed the back. Eleanor Vance, Henry's old rule. Always sign it, Ellie, and keep the receipt. A signature is a signature. I smiled at Mr. Patel and tucked the ticket and the receipt into my coat pocket. Could use some luck tonight, he said. Hope you get it. On the walk home, I looked at the dark houses and wondered how many other people were as tired as I was, still trying to believe in goodness even when their own family hurt them. I wasn't wishing for money, I was just wishing for a way out. When I got home, I put the ticket and the receipt on the kitchen counter, right where anyone could see it, like a little, quiet dare to the universe. Then I went up to the attic and listened to the rain. The next morning, just as the sun was coming up, I heard Sarah's scream, her voice high and wild. "David, wake up! Wake up! We won!" Footsteps pounding, then a whoop of laughter, kisses. 92 million. Oh my God, David, we won 92 million. I sat up in my cot, my heart hammering. I didn't even have to look. I knew exactly what ticket they were holding. I stepped out onto the landing and looked down. Sarah was clinging to David, tears of joy on her face, holding up the ticket. My ticket. "I can't believe it. I found it right here on the counter. Someone must have left it, but it's ours now." Sarah yelled, giddy. "It's a miracle." David laughed, hugging her. I stood completely still on the stairs. What started with a returned paint set was now a storm I couldn't control. I said nothing. I just watched the two people I had supported for 7 years dance around my kitchen, celebrating. I closed my eyes and told myself, "Be quiet, Eleanor. Let them have this moment." I wanted to see just how far their greed would go, and if, just maybe, they would have the conscience to realize it was never theirs. 3 days after they won, the phone in my little rented room rang at 7 a.m. I didn't get to it, and it rang again, sharp and urgent. "This is Mr. Miles, legal counsel for the Massachusetts State Lottery." His voice was calm and deep. "I need to verify some information regarding a winning ticket registered to an Eleanor Vance. Is this a good time?" I paused, my heart speeding up. "Yes, I'm the one who bought the ticket." I heard papers shuffling. "We've matched the signature, the serial number, and the timestamp from the purchasing system. The ticket was registered to Eleanor Vance, at your former address." "That's correct." "Then congratulations. You are the winner of the $92 million prize." I was quiet for a second. Not surprised, just a strange feeling. Like a storm you've been watching on the horizon has finally hit land. Mr. Miles continued, his voice turning serious. "However, I need to make you aware, we have been contacted by third parties claiming ownership. A woman named Sarah Vance." I closed my eyes and smiled. "She's claiming it?" "Oh yes," he said, sounding a little surprised by my calm. "She claims the ticket was a family purchase and that you, forgive me, are not mentally competent to manage an asset of this size." I let out a small, dry laugh. "That sounds like her. When they can't take it, they try to prove I'm too senile to keep it." I heard him typing. "Could you confirm a few details, just so we can protect your claim?" "I have the purchase receipt," I said, pulling it from my wallet. "Patel's Corner Mart. Purchase time, 8:12 p.m., Friday, April 19th. The serial number matches." I spoke clearly, no hesitation. On the other end, Mr. Miles sounded impressed. "Excellent. That is more than enough to confirm you as the sole legal owner. However, I must warn you, these individuals seem aggressive. They may try to spread rumors or even challenge this." I sighed. "Don't worry, Mr. Miles. I'm used to their games. In my life, I've been called a lot of things. One more doesn't matter." A moment of silence, then he said, "You're the calmest person I've ever told they've won $92 million. I just smiled. Because the real prize, Mr. Miles, isn't the money. It's the truth. Before he hung up, he added, "The claim window is 10 days. We can arrange for security if you need it." I thanked him. "Give me a few days. I want to see just how big a hole they dig for themselves." After the call, I sat still. The morning light in the little room was gray, falling on the peeling paint. I felt like I was standing between two worlds. This shabby room smelling of bleach, and the people who were, at this very moment, planning their new lives with my money. I pulled out my old notebook and wrote, Day 1. I'm still poor, but I'm richer than they are. I still have my dignity. I closed the book and called Margaret, my neighbor for 30 years. Margaret is the kind of woman who misses nothing. Eleanor, my goodness, where are you? The whole neighborhood is talking. Your daughter-in-law is telling everyone you gifted them the ticket and then went on a long vacation. I laughed. Yes, I'm on vacation. In a room over a laundromat. What on earth? Margaret, I need a favor. Watch the house. Write down what you see. Cars, deliveries. I want to know how fast they're spending. Margaret was quiet, then asked, What are you going to do, Ellie? I'm not going to do anything, I said. I'm just going to let the truth do its job. That afternoon, I went to the bank and opened a small safe deposit box. The teller asked what I'd be storing. My future, I said, and I placed the original receipt and a copy of my ID inside. I kept scans on my phone. I've learned that truth needs to be kept in more than one place. As I left, I saw my reflection. An older woman, silver hair, a plain cardigan, but my eyes were steady. Henry used to say, You're soft as butter, Ellie, but your heart is steel when you're pushed. Today, I knew he was right. I walked back and stopped at a small diner. I ordered a black coffee, pulled out my notebook, and started to write. Saturday. They still think I'm weak. They don't know the ticket has already spoken. I'm not running. I'm just waiting. That evening, I got the first text from David. Mom, we need to talk. Sarah is really upset. Don't believe what the papers are saying. The papers? I checked my phone. A local Boston blog. Local couple wins jackpot. Elderly mother gifts ticket, then vanishes. I laughed out loud. Their lies are so clumsy, I whispered. Congratulations, Sarah. You just told the world I bought the ticket. I texted David back. I'm not missing David. I'm just finally seeing things clearly. Then I turned off my phone. I didn't know where they were. Maybe test driving cars, maybe looking at mansions. But I knew one thing. The rules had changed. The moment Eleanor Vance was signed on that ticket, they could lie, they could spend, but they couldn't erase the truth. I wrote one last line before turning out the light. Tomorrow, they will buy more things and more lies. And I will just be still. This isn't about money. It's about character. I used to think greed only came out when people had nothing. Turns out it's even uglier when they get something they didn't earn. Just 3 days later, Sarah started her performance. She created a new social media account, Boston's Blessed. In her videos, she wore a new silk dress, held a champagne flute, and smiled. Life is so good, she told her new followers. When you're a good person, the universe always rewards you. I watched it on my old phone in that tiny room, half sick, half amused. She was implying I was the opposite, the ungrateful old woman. In one video, she said, My mother-in-law insisted we take the ticket. She said it was for the family. We're just so grateful for her generosity. Every word was a lie, crafted to make her look good. I read the comments. You're so lucky to have a mother-in-law like that. And one that stung. I hope the old lady doesn't get jealous and try to take it back. They didn't know, but they would. That morning, Margaret called. Ellie, you won't believe this. A brand new black Mercedes SUV just got delivered. The dealer plate is still on it. And furniture trucks. They're replacing everything. I chuckled. I believe it, Margaret. With Sarah, it's all about the show. At noon, Margaret sent me a photo. Sarah, posing by the front door, which was now painted a bright, gaudy red. She was holding a huge bouquet of flowers next to a new sign that said, The Vance Estate. David was smiling weakly beside her, and the kids were in stiff, matching outfits. The Vance Estate, I whispered. Henry would have hated that. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Sarah. Her voice was sickly sweet, nothing like the woman who'd screamed at me. "Mrs. Vance, I just wanted to chat, as family." I stayed silent. "About the ticket," she continued. "There's just a little legal mix-up. We just need you to sign a small affidavit confirming it was a gift, just to help the bank move things along." I let out a small laugh. "Sarah, when did you finally read the name on the back of the ticket?" Lorraine's question may sound gentle, but it's stronger than any revenge. If you've ever been misunderstood or looked down on like she was, would you stay silent or speak up like that? Share how you feel below. Sometimes one honest comment is enough to give strength to someone going through the same thing. Dead silence. The pause stretched out, and I could hear her breathing get faster. Then she changed tactics. "People online are saying you're not." "Well, I'm just worried, Eleanor. Worried someone might try to take advantage of you." I cut her off. "Thanks for the concern, but the only person who has ever taken advantage of me is the one on this phone." I hung up. The next night, an email from Mr. Miles. "Mrs. Vance, we've received a letter from the law firm representing Vance Family Holdings. It alleges you lack the mental and financial capacity to manage your affairs and requests that financial guardianship be transferred to your son, David Vance." I wasn't surprised. I knew she'd play the senile old woman card. "What do you think, Mr. Miles?" He gave a dry laugh. "I think it's a terrible move. They have no legal standing. Your signature, the receipt, the video from the store, it's all ironclad. If they push this, they're only going to embarrass themselves." "Then let them push," I said. "The deeper they walk into this, the more tracks they'll leave." The next day, Margaret called again, her voice low. "Ellie, I heard them arguing, all afternoon. David yelled, 'Stop it, Sarah, that's my mother.' And she screamed back, 'You take her side, and you'll end up with nothing just like her.'" I closed my eyes. I saw David, the little boy who promised to always protect me. Now he was trapped. I didn't hate him. I just felt sad. I lit a small candle and put it by Henry's photo on the wobbly desk. "Do you see, Henry?" I whispered. "I'm doing what you said. I'm not bowing my head. I'm standing tall, even if I'm standing alone." I sat for a long time, watching the flame. In it, I saw myself. A little shaky, but still bright. I opened my notebook. "They've already spent it, Mom. Deposits on 2 new cars, a down payment on a mansion in Weston, signed contracts for all new furniture, a trip to Europe, all of it on credit, telling people the money was pending." I sat on the hard plastic chair and just listened, every word a fresh cut. "So," I asked quietly, "you spent money you didn't have?" David was silent. I waited for an excuse, but he just sighed. I closed my eyes. David, for 7 years, who paid the heating bill? The water? The taxes? The groceries? No answer. I repeated slower. "Who, David?" After a long, heavy silence, he said, so quiet I could barely hear. "You did." "Right," I said. "Me. The person you let your wife call dead weight. The one you watched get thrown out of her own home. The one you're now trying to have declared incompetent. And now you're calling to ask if the ticket is mine?" David's voice cracked. I didn't know Sarah would do that. She said you wouldn't mind." I gave a small, bitter laugh. "She doesn't know me at all, David. I can forgive being poor. I can't forgive being lied to." I paused, then said, "You want to talk? Fine. You come here, to my room, today, 2 p.m. David was quiet. I heard a car door slam on his end. "I'll be there, Mom." "Good," I said. "But just bring the truth. No excuses." After the call, I looked around my little room. The smell of bleach, the stained walls. But it was mine. I wiped down the single plastic chair and opened the window. That smell of the laundromat used to bother me, But today, it smelled real. I wasn't pretending anymore. Just before 2, Mr. Miles called. "Mrs. Vance, I've scheduled your official identity verification and prize claim. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., at the main office. Please be 15 minutes early." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Thank you, Mr. Miles. It's almost over." "Do you want us to alert the press? In cases like this?" "Not yet," I said. "I want a few people to learn the truth before the whole world does." After, I made a small pot of mint tea. I sat at the table, opened my notebook, and wrote. Monday. My son asked, "Did you buy the ticket?" I answered, "Yes." Maybe today, for the first time in 7 years, he actually heard me. I closed the book. On the wall, an old photo of me, Henry, and a 5-year-old David, all of us smiling in front of this very house. I touched the frame. "Henry," I whispered, "what would you do? Would you forgive him?" I answered myself in silence. Maybe you would. I won't. Not yet. It wasn't 2 o'clock, but I was ready. I set out 2 cups. I put a few cookies on a plate. It's an old habit. I wanted David to see me clearly. Not the confused old woman Sarah was painting, but his mother. The woman who had held him and who was now holding him accountable. I looked at the clock. 1:47. My heart was steady. This time, he wouldn't just be meeting his mother. He'd be meeting the woman he and his wife woke up. The woman they never should have underestimated. I took a sip of tea. I looked at the empty chair across from me and said out loud, "I'm waiting, son." The knock came at 2 p.m., exactly. I opened the door. David stood there, looking pale, his eyes red. He looked around the shabby room, at the peeling paint, the narrow bed, the damp spot on the ceiling, and then back at me. His voice was choked. "I'm sorry, Mom." Just 3 words. I didn't answer. I just pointed to the chair. "Sit down, David. It's not much, but at least there are no lies in this room." He sat, his head down. Not 5 minutes later, the door burst open. Sarah. Her heels clicked on the linoleum. Her expensive perfume filled the small room, choking out the smell of bleach. She looked around and smirked. Cozy. I calmly set my teacup down. "It's honest, Sarah. Which is more than I can say for you." She shrugged, perching on the edge of my bed, pulling out her phone like she was bored. David looked from me to her, trapped. I decided to get to the point. "I'll be quick," I said. "This morning, the lottery's lawyer confirmed it. The name on the ticket is Eleanor Vance. The payout is being processed. The money will be in my account within 24 hours. The room was dead silent. David swallowed. After a beat, Sarah let out a thin, fake laugh. "So, you're just going to keep it all?" I met her gaze. "I'm going to keep what is mine." David held up a hand. "Mom, I didn't come to fight. I thought we could make an agreement. A family agreement. So this doesn't have to get ugly." I smiled. A small, sad smile that held 7 years of pain. "An agreement, David? I've been making agreements for 7 years. I agreed to be quiet when I was insulted. I agreed to pay the bills when you were out of work. I agreed to raise your children while your wife called me a burden. And my final agreement was to let you throw me out of my own house." David stared at the floor. Sarah sat up straight, her face a mask. She gave a little laugh. "You're misunderstanding. I just think, if we cooperate, everyone wins. We can buy a huge house. You can live with us. Your own private wing, a guest house. Anything you want." I lifted my head, my voice flat and cold. "A private wing, in your house." "That's right," Sarah said quickly, thinking I was giving in. "Private? Quiet?" I looked at her. Sounds more like a kennel out back than a mother's room. She froze, the color draining from her face. David started to talk, but I held up a hand. "Before we talk about cooperation, I need an answer." I opened the desk drawer and took out the folded expense log I'd kept for 7 years. I put it on the table. First question, I said, my eyes on Sarah. Who threw my belongings onto the lawn? She rolled her eyes. I just lost my temper. So you admit it, I cut in. Second question, who called me dead weight and a freeloader? She sneered. What do you want, an apology? I want the truth. And just in case you forgot, David was standing right there. He can confirm. David took a sharp breath, his voice shaking. Mom. Yes. Sarah said it. I heard her. Sarah whipped her head toward him. What are you doing? I'm telling the truth, David said. And for the first time in years, I heard a tiny bit of his old self. The room felt tight. Sarah's hands were clenched. I went on, quiet and clear. Thank you, David. You finally said it. I unfolded the paper. Utility bills, $212 a month for 7 years. Groceries, $450 a month. Roof repair in 2019, $9,800. Lily and Leo's preschool tuition, total $22,000. I folded the paper. All from my pension. I'm not asking for it back. I'm just reminding you, that was kindness, not an obligation. Cornered, Sarah's composure cracked. You think you're some kind of saint? Keeping score? If you don't sign a transfer agreement, I'll sue you. I'll tell everyone you're senile. David flinched. Sarah, stop. But I was already on my feet, calmer than I'd ever been. I pointed to the door. You can leave, Sarah. No more threats. The courthouse is downtown. Go ahead. Life will teach you what I couldn't. She jumped up, her eyes blazing. You'll regret this. I cut her off. No, you will. When you realize that money can't buy you peace. When your children ask why grandma isn't there. When your husband finally stops being afraid of you. Then you'll know who really lost. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She just turned, her heels hammering the floor, and slammed the door. Silence. Just me and David. He had his head in his hands. Mom, I don't know what to say. I let it go too far. I looked at my son. For the first time, his eyes were honest. Just remember this feeling, David, I said. This is the price. He nodded, his eyes wet. Can you forgive me? I sighed. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, David. It's just choosing not to let it hurt anymore. I stood up and put a hand on his shoulder. Now go. Take care of your children. Tomorrow, I'm claiming the money. After that, we'll see if you still want a mother. He squeezed my hand and left. When the door clicked shut, I sat down and looked at the 2 teacups. One still full, one untouched. That evening, David came back. Alone. He had on the same wrinkled shirt, his eyes swollen. I was sitting at the same table with 2 fresh cups of tea. He stood in the doorway. You don't need to explain, David, I said softly. I understand. Now, we talk about the future and the conditions. He nodded, his hands clenched. I pushed the teacup toward him. I will help you, I said. But not for you. For Lily and for Leo. He looked up, his eyes a mix of hope and shame. I spoke slowly. You put deposits down on things. I'll cover them. Consider it protecting my grandchildren from the mess their parents made. He started to thank me, but I held up my hand. Don't. I said I'd help, not forget. And this help has conditions. I met his eyes. First, you end this. You file for divorce. I will not give 1 cent to a household that woman is in. If you stay with her, you're on your own. David went still, but he didn't argue. Second, I continued, you will apologize, publicly, on the front steps, to Margaret and to every neighbor who watched you let Sarah humiliate me. Not for me, for you. You need to learn to own your choices. I paused. And third, you will get counseling. For single fathers. Not because you're broken, but because you need to relearn how to be a man. Your children deserve a father, not a shadow. The air was thick. Finally, he whispered, "What about Sarah?" I looked out the window. She'll do what people like her do. She'll scream and threaten and sue. And I'll let her. But if she wants a war, I'm ready. As if on cue, a furious banging at the door. It swung open. Sarah. Her eyes were wild. Perfect. The two of you, plotting. David stood up. "Sarah, I told you to Wait, so you could let her poison you against me?" She turned to me, sneering. "What are you doing, Eleanor? Buying my husband?" I stayed calm. "I'm setting the terms for his forgiveness, Sarah. A list you're not on." "Oh, really?" she snapped. "You think you can just take my family? I'll get full custody. I'll take half of everything. I have rights." I smiled, a small, tired smile. "Then sue, Sarah. But just remember, don't use my money to pay your lawyer." Silence. In her eyes, for the first time, confusion. Maybe she'd never met anyone who wasn't afraid of her. David turned, put his hand on my shoulder, and said, his voice rough, "Mom, I choose you. I choose the kids." I just nodded. Henry's words, "A man isn't a man until he chooses the hard right over the easy wrong." David had finally made his choice. Sarah looked at her husband, her face crumbling. "You'll regret this." David didn't answer. His silence was the answer. She yanked the door open. "I'll see you in court. You'll lose everything." Her voice cracked. I just watched her go. "No, Sarah," I said quietly. "You already lost. You threw away the one thing money can't buy, respect." "We'll see," she screamed from the hallway. I smiled, light as air. Good, because the court will finally get to see the truth. Her heels clattered down the stairs. David sank into the chair, his head in his hands. Where do I even start? "You start by keeping your word," I said. "Tomorrow, you go apologize to Margaret. You tell her everything, and from now on, you pay your own bills." "I can help, but I will not be your bank." He nodded. In his eyes, I saw a little spark, not of joy, but of understanding. I refilled his tea. "Drink this. It's the taste of truth. Bitter, but clean." He took a sip. "I understand, Mom." I answered softly. "No, David. You're just beginning to." When he left, I stood by the window. I picked up my pen and wrote, "Tonight, my son chose what was right over what was easy. Forgiveness has conditions, because love is not a doormat." I blew out the candle. In the dark, I could see my own reflection in the glass. Tired, but at peace. Tomorrow, the fight would begin. But this time, I wasn't alone. The next afternoon, the sun finally came out. I put on my best beige cardigan and picked up my purse. Inside, the ticket, the receipt, my ID. Mr. Miles arrived right on time. "Ready, Eleanor?" I smiled. "I've been ready for 7 years, Mr. Miles. Today is just the paperwork." We got to the lottery office at 3:15. A woman in a gray suit greeted us. "Are you the owner of ticket number 88 Delta 521? "Yes," I said, and I laid the ticket on the table. She inspected it under a light, matched the signature, and then pulled up the security footage from Patel's Corner Mart. The screen showed a woman in a brown coat signing the back of a ticket. It was me. The staffer nodded. "The signature is a 100% match. The ticket is valid." I let out a breath I'd been holding for a week. They gave me the payout options. I said clearly, "I'll take an initial portion. The remainder is to be placed into a trust, the Henry and Eleanor Vance Trust." The staffer looked surprised. "Right now?" "Yes. I lost an honest man. I want to make sure his name is attached to something honest." Mr. Miles smiled. "I'll finalize the trust. It will be private. No media access." "Exactly," I said. "I've had enough noise." When it was done, Mr. Miles asked, Do you want me to submit Mrs. Margaret's witness statement as well? I have her handwritten account of the spending and the eviction. I smiled. Yes, I want it on the record. Kindness is not stupidity. The manager signed the final forms. Congratulations, Mrs. Vance. I held the receipt. Recipient, Eleanor Vance. Just 2 words, but they were the proof. On the drive back, Mr. Miles asked, "Any plans?" "I want to open a separate education trust for Lily and Leo." "Good," he said. "I only have one rule," I said. "They get it at 18 for school. No one else touches it. Not David, not me." He nodded. "You know, Eleanor, most big winners only think about what to buy." I smiled. I've lived long enough to know money only matters if it stays clean. That evening, I signed a lease on a small house on Cape Cod. Quiet, with a porch facing the water. I put down a deposit to have a trellis for climbing roses built, the kind Henry used to grow. "What color?" the contractor asked. "Deep, velvety red," I said. "I want to smell them every morning and remember him with a smile, not with tears." That night, I went back to the room to pack. An email from Sarah. Subject: Legal notice. I opened it. An attachment, a forged medical report, claiming I had cognitive impairment. She still didn't get it. The game was over. I forwarded it to Mr. Miles. He called in 5 minutes. "Eleanor, she just made a fatal error. This is defamation and fraud. I'm sending a cease and desist. If she uses this, we'll sue her into the ground." "Quietly, Mr. Miles," I said. "People only lie when they're terrified of the truth." He chuckled. "You're right. But now, the law is on your side." I closed the phone. A sea breeze came through the little window. I lay down on the cot, my shoulders finally unclenching. I thought about the $92 million. It didn't even feel real. What felt real was proving I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak, and I didn't need anyone else to tell me my worth. I looked at Henry's photo. "I did it, love," I whispered. "I kept signing my name, just like you said." For the first time in years, I slept. No screaming, no fighting. Just the sound of the city and a feeling of peace, like old arms around me. May brought the cold wind off the Atlantic, and with it, the court notice. Sarah Carter Vance had officially filed suit. She was seeking full custody of Lily and Leo. The complaint was almost 100 pages. She accused me of financial manipulation, of using the lottery winnings to poison David against her, and of being a risk to the children's financial future. I read every word, half laughing. Instead of apologizing, Sarah had decided to play the victim. Mr. Miles just raised an eyebrow. "She's forgotten one thing, Ellie. This isn't a private fight anymore. This is a court of law, and she's leaving a trail." 2 weeks later, we were in court. The judge was a woman in her 50s with sharp, intelligent eyes. When I walked in, she looked at me not with pity, but with respect. Sarah sat across the aisle, dressed in a spotless white suit, her hair perfect. She was holding David's hand, but he was staring at the floor. I knew that grip. It wasn't love. It was a chain. The social worker reported first. Mrs. Vance's former room was modest, but clean. The new residence on Cape Cod has been inspected and is suitable. Mr. David Vance's current apartment is stable, and he has a clear plan for the children. By contrast, Ms. Sarah Vance's residence is currently in pre-foreclosure, and we have received noise complaints. Sarah tried to cut in. "I work from home. He can't raise them alone." The judge just raised a hand. "You'll have your turn." Then came the witnesses. Margaret took the stand with her little notebook. She recounted the insults, the bills, the day of the eviction. When the judge asked why she remembered, Margaret said, "Because I watched a good woman be treated like dirt by the very people she saved." Then Mr. Patel, from the corner store, who confirmed I bought the ticket, I signed it, and I kept the receipt. Finally, Mr. Miles played the video from Margaret's security camera. Sarah, on the lawn, throwing my clothes. Her voice, clear as day. Go fade away in a home. The courtroom was silent. Sarah put her head in her hands. David was visibly shaking, tears running down his face. The judge's voice was firm. Ms. Vance, the court has reviewed this. Verbal and financial abuse of an elder is still abuse. Sarah burst into tears. I was just stressed. Stress does not excuse cruelty, the judge said. When it was David's turn, I didn't look at him. I just listened. He laid out his plan. His work schedule, the kids' school, proof he'd enrolled in the single-father counseling. The judge asked, "Can you support them?" David said, "Yes, Your Honor. I'm back at my firm full-time. My mother has set up an education trust for the children, but she does not interfere in my personal finances." That one sentence made me let go of a breath I'd been holding for years. He finally knew how to stand on his own. When it was my turn, the judge asked, "Mrs. Vance, what do you want?" I stood up. "I'm not here to win, Your Honor. I just want my grandchildren to be safe. I want them to grow up in a home where they're not afraid. Whichever parent can give them that, that's the parent I support." The judge nodded, her eyes softening. After 2 days, the ruling came. The court granted primary custody to David. Sarah was granted supervised visitation, conditional on her completing a 6-month behavioral counseling program. As for the lawsuit over the lottery winnings, the judge dismissed it entirely and formally reprimanded Sarah for defamation and the use of fraudulent medical documents. Judge Shaw read the final words. The court recognizes Eleanor Vance as the sole legal owner of the prize and as a victim of defamation. Truth does not need a defender. It only needs time, and time has done its job. Sarah just gripped the chair, her face white. David said nothing. He just reached over and took my hand, a grip I'd waited 7 years to feel. When we walked out of the courthouse, the wind from the harbor was sharp, but it felt clean. My hair was all over my place, but I didn't fix it. I just let it fly. Mr. Miles smiled. "You won, Eleanor." I smiled back. "No, the truth won." Margaret ran up and hugged me. "I told you justice finds its way." I laughed and looked out at the water. "Thank you, Margaret. Now, I'm going to go home and plant those roses. The trellis is waiting." David stood next to me. "Mom," he said quietly, "I'm going to find an apartment near you on the Cape. Not with you, just near. So Lily and Leo can ride their bikes over." I just nodded. A tear slipped down, but it wasn't sad. That night, I sat on the porch of my new house, watching the moonlight on the water. The waves were a steady, quiet sound. No more anger. I opened my notebook and wrote the last lines. Today, the court didn't just rule on Sarah. It ruled on 7 years of silence. The price of greed is to lose everything. The reward for patience is peace. The wind blew, and I thought I heard Henry whisper, "See, Ellie, it all worked out." I moved into the little house on the Cape in early June. The kitchen smelled like new paint and the sea. I put pots of lavender in the window so I could drink my tea and watch the waves. The house was small, just enough for me. I hung the old photos. Henry's smile, David as a little boy, Lily and Leo on my lap. On the first weekend, David called, "Mom, can I bring the kids?" I smiled. "The door is open, David, but you're making the chowder." That Saturday, they arrived. Lily and Leo ran across the little yard, their laughter mixing with the sound of the gulls. It was the first time I'd felt purely happy in years. David stood in my new kitchen, clumsily chopping onions. "Mom, I can't remember how much cream Dad used." I smiled. Henry never measured. He just cooked with his heart. We made the chowder. As the smell filled the house, I realized some things never die. They just wait. After dinner, I took Lily outside. I had a box. Inside was the professional watercolor set. Lily squealed. Grandma, for me? Really? I nodded, my eyes stinging. Yes, for you, but on one condition. What? You have to promise me. Never let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve beautiful things. She hugged me so tight, then spent the whole afternoon on the porch, painting the ocean. Her laughter washed away all the old bitterness. A few weeks later, David started that support group for single dads. He'd call me after. They're teaching me how to set boundaries, Mom. How to say no without feeling guilty. I smiled. You're just learning what your father always knew. A good man is a strong man. David was changing. He was slower, more thoughtful. I set my own boundaries. Any help from me, for the kids, for school, I need a receipt and a reason. I won't just hand over money anymore. He understood. He finally grew up. In the fall, I started a little project, the Henry's Porch, a small fund to help older folks find legal aid if their families were trying to take advantage of them. I asked Margaret to help. She showed up with a paintbrush. Where do we start, Ellie? We repainted an old table, and it became the place where my grandkids did their homework, where David and I had coffee. One evening, I sat down to write. I wrote a letter to myself. Eleanor, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It just means you've moved on. People can change, but not everyone gets to come back. I put the letter in a drawer. That night, I cut one of my new red roses and put it by Henry's picture. I put myself first, Henry, I whispered, and I kept my word. I sat, listening to the waves. That afternoon, during a rainstorm, I heard a knock. I opened the door. It was Sarah. She was holding a broken umbrella, her face thin, her eyes hollow. What do you want, Sarah? I asked. She hesitated. I need help. I let her sit on the porch, but I didn't invite her in. The creditors, I lost my job, she whispered. I don't know what to do. I looked at her. The fight was gone. Just a woman, broken by her own choices. You want an easy way out, don't you? She nodded. There isn't one, Sarah. There's only the hard way back. She started to cry. I was wrong. I lost everything. I just poured her a cup of tea. From my desk, I got a small envelope. Inside wasn't money. It was a list of job centers and counseling groups for behavior management. I slid it to her. This is where you start. She held it. Can I see the kids? The court was clear, I said. You complete the counseling, you get your visits. David won't stop you. Neither will I. She nodded. And one more thing, I said, my voice gentle but firm. I will not give you $1. But if you're hungry and you're honest, this porch is open. She finally choked it out. I'm sorry, Eleanor. I looked at her for a long time. I hear you. She left as the rain stopped. That night, we had chowder. David talked about his group. Lily told us she fell off her bike, scraped her knee, but got back on. I remembered what you said, Grandma. You just have to stand up. I ruffled her hair. That's my girl. Leo said, I prayed that Mom gets better. The room went quiet. After dinner, I stood on the porch, watching the sunset. I thought of Henry. He'd smile and say, In the end, Ellie, we are just our choices. And I had chosen me. I had chosen peace. I wrote the last lines in my notebook. No one can start a new chapter if they keep rereading the last one. Today, I closed the book. Not to end the story, but to start a new one. Thank you for sitting with me all the way to the end. If you're still here, you've been on this whole journey with me. I'd love to know what city you're listening from. And if anything in this story touched you, please leave a comment. I read them all. We tell a new story here every single day. If you'd like to sit with me again tomorrow, please follow our channel and tap that little bell so you don't miss it. And if you'd like to hear another story that will surprise you, just click one of the videos you see on the screen now.